In the previous training videos, we learned how to create a visual report. In the recent training video, we learned how to customize that visual report. Here I'm going to show you how to create a visual report template. So every time you generate this visual report, you don't have to keep checking and unchecking what you want. Just create the template once, and then when you generate a copy of it, you'll have everything that you need. So to create this visual report template, come up here, click on the report menu, go down to visual reports, and then just come over here and click on the new template button. First of all, what application do you want it in? Well, it's going to be Excel. You can choose Visio, but again, that's just going to be a flow chart of it. And then down below, what's the data type? You can click on the drop down arrow and choose from a few of them here. I'm going to go ahead and select assignment usage, and then out of that data type, what fields would you like? Go ahead and click on the field picker button. It has a list of all the available fields that you can double click and add over here, or double click to remove them. I'm okay with the selected defaults, so I'll click OK. Click OK, and there we go. It's done generating. Now after it generates, the first thing we need to do is create our pivot table. Once we create the pivot table, then we can go ahead and create our pivot chart based upon the data in the pivot table. Now again, for those of you who don't know what a pivot table is, I again refer you to my Excel training videos, but I'll keep it simple here. All you have to do is come over here in the field list and check the values that you'd like to see in your pivot table. I'm going to go over here and check my actual costs, baseline costs, and notice when I check the fields, not only does it update it and add them over here, but down below, out of these four boxes, it's going to define it either as a value, a row label, a column label, or a report filter. And if you don't like the way it defined it, you can of course click and drag and move these around. But let me go ahead and finish checking the rest of the values that I'd like to see in my pivot table. Costs. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and check resources. Typically for your column labels, if there's any time, like a time field here within your field list, it'll default it as a column label. So when I check it, well, there it is. Okay, so looking at my row labels, I have values. And what are the values? Well, I go over here to the value box and it's got them listed: actual, baseline, and cost. There's my actual, baseline, and cost. Then the other row label are the resources. So I have a list of all the resources here, which is okay, but I would rather have my resources as a filter, because maybe I want to be able to find my actual cost of all resources, like all the administrative assistants or all the editors. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag the resources and say that you're going to be a filter. So once it's a filter, all you have to do is come up here and click on the drop down arrow, and by default it's going to include all resources. So when I click and expand that, it's got a listing of all the resources. When I expand that, it doesn't give me a checkbox to select these types of resources that I would like to include as part of the pivot table filter, or what I'd like to filter in as my pivot table. So what you have to do is come down here and check the box select multiple items. Okay, that allows you to check what resources you'd like to display or to filter into your pivot table. Come up here and uncheck all, and then go ahead and check the ones that you would like to get your costs on. Then click OK, and you can see up at the top it says that multiple items have been filtered, and you can see the little filter funnel there. And of all those that have been filtered, here's our actual cost, baseline cost, and of course the cost that we have now based upon what we've checked up here. So click on the drop down arrow, and if you want all of them, just go ahead and uncheck that and click OK. We're back to all of them now. Again, your baseline cost is what you anticipated at the beginning of the project. Your cost is what you've entered in now, including actual cost, and then you have your actual cost, not what has been entered, but what's actually coming in. So that's the pivot table, okay? One final thing on the pivot table is you notice down here this defer layout update box. If you check that, all that does is that when you add fields to your table over here by checking the boxes, it doesn't update them. You don't see them immediately displayed over here until you click on the update button. So again, the difference, do you want to automatically see them when you check the boxes, or do you want to have to click on the update button? Okay, so that's enough with our pivot table. Now you're going to find that when we create this template that there's going to be quite a big difference between our template that we create and the default visual reports that Project has for us, okay? And you'll see that in just a second. So here's the pivot table. I want the pivot chart on a separate worksheet. So I'm going to come down here, click on worksheet 2, have a blank worksheet. And one of the first things you're going to notice is the difference is that in Project's default visual report templates, when they have a chart, it takes up the whole page. Ours is going to be an embedded chart, and we're just going to have to deal with that for right now because that's the only option or choice that we get. So to go ahead and insert a pivot chart, come up here and click on the Insert tab, go to the Tables group, click on the drop-down Pivot Table, and click on Pivot Chart. Okay, it says, where's your data that this chart is going to be based upon? Well, I need to select it. As long as my cursor is flashing here, I can come over here to Sheet 1 and select my data range. It's going to be up here with my beginning with the data, clicking and dragging and selecting my data down below. Now if you select blank fields up above, you'll get an error, so by trial and error you'll know what to select. Go ahead and click OK and you're done. Well, almost. You've got your blank pivot chart here, and the reason why it's blank is because you haven't chosen in the pivot table field list what you'd like to see. Well, you could say, well, wait a second, don't I have the pivot table over here that what I see here is what I'm going to see over here in the pivot chart? No. Again, that's one of the differences between Project's default template visual reports and the ones that you're creating. In any case, just come over here and check the boxes that you would like to see, and then when you're finished, that's it. You can go ahead and click Save and save it as a template. Of course, you can check other boxes, your grand total here. If these get in the way, your pivot chart filter pane or your pivot table field list, you can of course close out of them. But just know that if you lose them, if you click off in a blank area, you're not going to get the contextual related tabs for the chart. So select the chart, come back up here, click on the Analyze tab, and there's your pivot chart filter and your field list. So again, there are differences. We do have a pivot table here that this chart is based upon. And you don't want to really mess around with this, because if I come over here, and what I mean by messing around is that even though it seems like they're separate, if I come over here and uncheck one of these boxes, it's still linked to it, and I go back to Sheet 2. If I uncheck the cost on Sheet 1, the pivot table, it'll probably still display here, but when I try to save it as a template and try to reopen it, it may have some issues. So keep things clean, okay? And I wouldn't start messing around with it for your template. Save it as a template and then go ahead, and after you create copies based upon that template, you can mess around with those, because of course you're not overwriting the original template. So I'm finished. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Save button. Takes me to my templates folder, so I'm going to go ahead and type in the name. My Spiffy Cost template, click Save. And then it says this workbook contains external data. Do you want Microsoft Excel to clear the data before saving the template and then automatically refresh the data when the template is opened? Well, yes, we want to do that, because when we create copies of the template, we want that refreshed to pull the data in here. So we'll say yes. We'll close out. It's not going to display in here because this hasn't been refreshed. To refresh it, I'm going to go ahead and close out of here, come back up, click on the Report menu, go down to Visual Reports, and there's my Spiffy Cost template. Go ahead and select it, click on the View button, and there we go, it opened up. Fantastic. Now we've got a template that we can email to other people. Go ahead and make variations of it before we send it off. In any case, we don't have to go back and select our pivot chart and uncheck and recheck other things. We already have it set up the way we want it. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.